When we're pursuing our path, there are going to be blocks, trials, challenges, tribulations, things that we need to overcome in order to continue on. And this can look like skills or acquiring know-how, but often it's the psychological blocks, these things that I call becoming barriers, that can stall us the most. And in this video, I want to explain one that I see stalling people all the time, and it is this idea of being enough. And my name is Joe Yulee. I'm a philosopher. I'm absolutely obsessed with vocations and callings and knowing how to navigate the path. And it's why I educate people on places like Substack, YouTube, podcast. It's why I have this online community, an 8-week course that guides people through this process of choosing the right career path with conviction by unearthing their very own personalized career archetype. Because it's my belief that to walk a path that isn't meant for you leads to resentment and regret. And to walk a path that is meant for you leads to this deep, rich, fulfilling life. And this becoming barrier, this psychological barrier of being enough, can often cause people to not be able to pursue their calling, can completely keep them stuck, whereby they're just not able to get any traction on their path. Even if they know what it is that they want to do in theory, they can't make moves towards it. Now, one of the reasons this can happen and people can take this on, this idea of I am not enough, is that at some point in their life, they saw themselves or took on this belief of not being worthy. Now, this might have come from their interaction with a parent, a mother that had very, very high standards, constantly wanted their child to rise to those standards. The child didn't rise, and so therefore the mother poked and prodded and said, not good enough. Or a father that wanted the child to take a particular path in life, and that wasn't their path, so they never quite lived up to that parent's expectations. This can come from interacting with a teacher who says things like, this work isn't good enough, you're not up to standard, you're not at the level, you're not good at this, you're bad at this. These harsh, critical pieces of perspective that can pierce us in such a way that we hold on to it and we root it deeply within ourselves as a belief that we hold to be true, maybe even unknowingly. And we've suddenly taken hold of this, and even if it is within us and we don't even know that it's within us, we're acting out and behaving it in our lives, and it's causing us to make particular decisions, right? It's deeply rooted. We're making decisions based on someone from high school or a coach from a sporting team that we used to run with back when we were a teenager, and we're taking these different decisions of critiques along with us for our entire human journey. And this can really cause this festering underneath. And this leads me to the very first thing that you need to understand, which is that you are enough. And you are enough in the sense that you are human, you are alive, you are living and breathing, you are experiencing this existence, this mortality. And that is to be good enough, to be simply here in the moment with us. By just simply being here as a human being, you are enough. And at that fundamental level, you are enough. In the same way that we look at the trees or a flower or the forest floor, we don't question their place in the world, and we needn't question our own humanity. We simply need to connect with our humanity to understand that being here is simply enough. And so what this means is that when people have this becoming barrier, and a becoming barrier is simply, as we're walking towards our calling, as we're walking towards our path, there are these different barriers and challenges along the way that we need to overcome in order to get to that next stage of our vocation. And in the early days, oftentimes, a lot of these different barriers are psychological barriers that hinder us. And when we have this barrier of being enough, it means that we're not truly connected to our humanity and our human experience. It means that we're searching for it somewhere else rather than connecting within and connecting to our own soul that, hey, I am here experiencing my mortality. And without that realization, that fundamental understanding that everything is good enough and everything is enough, and that means you too, without that realization, it festers underneath. And what it causes is this inability to move forward with our past because we're always constantly thinking that we're not enough. And yet from the perspective of being rooted in your humanity, you are enough. Now, this idea has to be balanced with a nuance. And there's another side to this, because you will often see people that are totally connected to being enough, and that is amazing, and they are in bliss. But when it comes to your vocation, it's still work in the world that needs to be done. There are still materialistic elements that need to be factored in order to improve and move forward. Meaning that there is a nuance here of you are enough at the deepest fundamental human level, at the divine level, you are enough. Now, when it comes to your vocation, here's this one might be a little bit of an ouch moment. You aren't enough. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that oftentimes people don't start to make progress on their vocation because they haven't totally understood the trajectory of how things unfold when it comes to specifically your vocation. There are particular skills that you need to take on. There are particular learnings that need to happen. There's a need to experience your craft for a long period of time. Mastery takes time. And so this trajectory that people never get going on is something whereby they need to get going on. And the realization that on one level you aren't enough can help with this. So on one level, you are enough. On another side, you aren't enough. And so understanding the side of you aren't enough is the side of craftsmanship. It's the side of up-leveling in skills. It's the side of apprenticeship. It's the side of volume, right? Doing lots of the work in order to slowly improve over time. It's the side of reflecting on some sort of ideal and allowing that ideal to make a judgment on where you reside. And so we need to carry both of these truths. On a fundamental human level, you are good enough. When it comes to your vocation, you are not good enough. You have a higher ceiling. You have a higher potential. And you can probably feel that, right? I can be better. I can go beyond the capabilities of where I am at right now. And the sense of improvement and moving forwards is this other side of being enough. Now, from an astrological perspective, if you know anything about astrology, you might know a little bit about the axis of Virgo and Pisces. And this is a really great one to look at when we start to think about this side of total being enough on the side of the Piscean, right? Dissolving into the entire framework of world consciousness, a collective oneness and wholeness, and saying like, I am safe and I surrender to everything in the unknown. And on the other side, we have the Virgo side, which is this sense of craftsmanship and betterment and improvement and perfection and totally continuing on to improve. Now you'll notice that they're on the same axis, right? There's this one level of this deeper wholeness and being one with the universe, and there's this other level of being better, making things better, taking in the chaos of the world, ordering it in such a way whereby it is now a better sequence of how things are meant to work mechanically, work even organically. And understanding that there are both of these levels helps with knowing when you are someone that's like, I'm not enough, which level are you playing on, first of all? If you think that you are not enough at the human level, then you are wrong, right? You're just fundamentally wrong. If you are living, if you are breathing, then you are enough. Now, if it is the level of, hey, my craft is not up to par, or there are other people at my craft that are just objectively better, I can just see it, they're better at what they do than me. Then it's about, okay, so you've got some learning, some growth, some skills that you need to improve upon. And there's a higher standard that you need to rise towards. And both of these levels need to be understood. And it's crucial that both these truths are held at the same time to start to work through the side of being enough. Now, I'm reminded of, and I just finished doing this monthly themes period within our online community. So every single month we choose a particular theme that is connected with vocations. And we just finished talking about one that is about role models and mentors. Actually, this month we're talking about divine trust, but last month we talked about mentors and role models. And one of the mentor relationships that I looked at was that of the chef Marco Pierre White in relation to the famous chef Gordon Ramsay. Both famous in their own right. Gordon Ramsay's probably more famous. We can argue that Marco Pierre White might be the better chef. But Marco Pierre White taught Gordon Ramsay. And it was very much this period of intense raising the standard, right? Improving in skill, getting better every single day. And this is the side of you aren't good enough, but you can become good enough. You can go through this period of transformation to reach a level that is beyond where you are at right now. And so to have this this way of being, whilst also understanding at a low level that your humanity, you just being alive is enough, is so important to moving through this barrier. Now, if we are at a period, right, where we're looking at this skill, we're looking and saying, I'm not at the level that I want to be at, and I can't get going, I can't just start. What is often going on is that there's no appreciation for the phases of how things actually unfold. There's probably a want or a desire of it to be a particular way, but it's not actually that way. So let me explain what I mean. When someone is beginning to go towards improvement or towards a level of mastery, there is a beginning phase. There is a phase where they are not good. There is a phase where they need to improve, they need to work on their craft, they need to learn the basics. And just on this like line of the chefs, if you would ever have seen the show The Bear, they show this scene where the main chef is going through this apprenticeship phase, and he's just like learning how to cook an egg, he's learning how to roast a chicken, he's learning all the basics, all the fundamentals. Right? There's this period where he isn't that good. There's a period where he's having to put out things that aren't at the level at which he later on reaches. People that get stuck in this phase of saying that they're not good enough on a skills level have no respect for the actual process itself. And there's this need to accept that reality, this need to look at it and say, oh, I actually need to go through my period of I suck, this period of it's not that good. And by going through that period of it's not that good, putting in the volume takes you to the place where you start to get really, really good. And if you don't go through that period, if you're trying to skip the stage, all that happens is you end up just constantly not putting out things, not going through the process, and not actually reaching that level where you are, from a crafts perspective, good enough. And so everyone starts as a beginner. Everyone, if you were to think about it from the perspective of people that have big social media followings, they all posted their very first post where it was probably rubbish, right? They all posted their first post and then their second, and it probably wasn't until like post 50, post 100, whatever it was, where it really started to grow. We really started to see the improvement. If you were to think about painters, right? There are probably hundreds of paintings that you haven't seen that are in the bin, right? Screwed up, smashed up, canvases broken, in the bin. And it wasn't until later on where it's pristine, where it's like, that's amazing. And people keep trying to jump to that step, skip the stages. And yet, the sooner that you accept the stages and you start working through them, the sooner that you actually start to get to the other side. It's like if you were to think about a writer, they're not going to, very first draft, write out, Tolstoy's War and Peace. It's not just going to just come out straight away. There are going to be drafts. There are going to be many drafts. There are going to be slashed words, crosses everywhere, periods of like, this is horrible, this isn't quite working, periods maybe where they don't even want to do it at all. And yet going through that is how you get to this other side, where you get to the side of, oh, I'm actually starting to be good enough at my craft. And so you have that level of recognize that everyone starts as a beginner and everyone goes through this process where they're getting better and better and better. The more that you tune in to improvement, the better that you'll get. This is one of the things, I read a lot of biographies. I read a lot of people that just do amazing things when it comes to their vocation in the world. And one of the surefire signs to seeing someone that is on the trajectory towards doing something that is really, really incredible and really, really great is their speed of accepting the feedback of improvement. And they're just these learning machines. And the closer people get to becoming these learning machines and improving, the faster that they get to this other side of excellence. But that's that one level of, if you're not good enough on the craft side of things, you need to accept the actual journey to raise to that level. Now, on the other side, if you feel as though you are not enough as just being a human, just being alive and here in the world and experiencing your human existence, it means that you've been severed from your soul and your humanity. It means that there's a disconnect with the greater cosmos. And this often requires some form of spiritual pursuit in order to properly connect into that. It can also happen by going through a deep, reflective, and healing journey of your own and really coming to terms with you are good enough at a human level simply by being born. And if you are feeling that way, I would heavily encourage you to start going and exploring those avenues, because you are good enough. And when you realize that you are good enough on a human level, then you can't do anything wrong. There's nothing that you can do that is off in a way that you're going to fail in your vocation, because it's just a part of the story. If you actually study vocation, you'll see that everyone that walks a vocation, they fail at different points, but it's a part of the total story. It's a part of the mythology of how things actually unfold. It's those failures that allow them to reflect and to grow, to go introspective, and then come up higher on the other side. And so realizing that you are a human allows these things to dissolve away. And so I want to leave you with this, which is that this becoming barrier, this challenge of being enough, it has gold within it. Every single barrier and challenge has gold within it. Now, the gold for thinking that you're not enough and going through this process of realization that you are enough is this awareness of your place in the universe and coming to terms with your place in the universe. It's also an awareness of how you need to improve and the levels at which you aspire towards and the work and effort that is required in order to reach those levels. It is also an awareness on you being at this beginning stage, which is exciting. One of my favorite periods in different movies is when someone is down and out and they start getting everything together and they start getting their life together and they start making changes and transforming and moving through those changes to a better existence. And that actually speaks to another part of the gold that can be found within moving through, realizing that you are enough, which is transformation. People that really come to terms with, one, they are enough as a human being, and two, they can be good enough at their craft and they need to start to pursue it. So they go through these really insane transformations. They become people that are totally unrecognizable, but are more connected to who they are than they've ever been. And so if you are, at this period of your life when you're like, I know that this is a barrier for me. I know that I feel as though I'm not enough. Know that there is gold by facing it. There is gold by going through it. And there is gold by you really accepting that you are enough. And if you want to learn more about becoming barriers and finding out which one is yours, I have different becoming barriers that I speak to in our 8-week course within our community, this course that helps people to choose the right career path with conviction. And by doing that, they're able to unearth their career archetype. And here's a little bit of a spoiler. When you go through the Becoming Barrier section, it often informs you about what your career archetype needs to do out in the world. And so if you are someone that is looking to understand how to choose your path, know your path, and walk that path in the modern world in relation to not only your soul, but also the lifestyle that you lead and how to finance this in the modern world, then I would heavily encourage you to go ahead and check out our online community and 8-week course, and I'll leave a link below.